Howdy, y'all. TheGooseFathr here. Patch notes just dropped for March 19th, and some of them are pretty fun for us. So we're going to go through them, as always, from a pygmallion perspective. Some of them don't matter as much to us. I'll cover them really briefly as I go, but I'll try to focus on the things that are really going to change up our gameplay. So starting off, regeneration can now crit, and effects that grant crit should now affect items with generation active outputs. This is not particularly interesting. I think the biggest change this probably has, regen is not particularly useful in the game. They have a couple of patches that update a couple of items with regen, but it's still generally not going to be something that's used very often, certainly not by Pig. The one thing that this kind of affects is that items with regeneration can now be hit by the amulet loot item that gives crit effect. And so if you wanted to be able to move an enchant over to those items by using the crit effect thing, you can. So theoretically, you could put crit effect on your, your solar farm or whatever. Or you could use that item to move an enchant over to your solar farm or whatever. Tiny furry creature no longer spawns on hour 2 of day 1. Hallelujah. I've been saying every time I saw him that was deeply frustrating. Artist Alley option no longer costs gold at Bazaar. Cool. I'm not sure how often we're going to take it still. That's just the option that lets you get a diamond item up against 2 XP. I'm still not sure you take it unless you're like deeply desperate for money or you're really hosed and you're fishing for an item. If you get it very, very early, a diamond item is like taking a shot in the dark that you could get something that could be super powerful, but you don't tend to get Bazaar super early. I don't know. If I got a day 3, I might grab a diamond item. But generally, I don't think that's going to change your play. The prize pass additional XP is kind of cool. You get 3 XP per day, so you get a little bit more on the runs where you go longer, and now you get XP increases at each win threshold. 5 at 4 wins, 5 at 7 wins, and 5 at 10 wins. So a 10-win run will net you 15 extra XP on top of however many you would have gotten for the days. This is okay. It makes it feel like you're doing something, and also anything that gives you benefit, especially when you're not doing ranked, to getting more wins, I think is good because it means you're not going to want to just keep stopping and re-rolling as often. And it just feels a little bit better. The big problem is that XP is on an exponential growth curve. So in the early days, you feel like you're just like getting tons of tickets. In the early days of the season, you just feel like tickets are flying at you and they almost don't have much value because of that. And then in the later days of the season, it's like you will never get the next ticket upgrade, it feels like. And this isn't going to change that with the amount of XP necessary. This does not mean you could suddenly grind out your 24th and 25th ticket. It's not going to have that big of an impact because the amount of XP for those is so huge. So it's a good directional change. It just doesn't fix the inherent problems. Start of run, the income gold option comes with 1 less income. Kind of needed. The income gold option is vastly superior for us, at least, for Pig. It does not change that fact by being 1 less income. I think it's still incredibly powerful. Even if it were just the 12 gold, I would still probably take it most of the time. But 12 gold to income is definitely still our most powerful option. Although the enchanted start can no longer spawn golden is pretty big because that was a very useless enchant on most items. With the exception of what I saw it on most, which is Slingshot, which for some reason that enchant gave Slingshot like 6 ammo when there's nothing at the card text that would suggest that would happen, but that's what was happening. And that item actually hits very fast, very hard. So you could grab it and pick up a day 1 win if you wanted to, and then just kind of throw it away. But that's a good change. It'll make enchants slightly more consistent. I've been playing around with them because they're significantly more fun. And so I think making it more consistent makes it more fun. It doesn't necessarily make it more competitive, but that's perfectly fine. Okay, new content, Val Pack, a merchant that buys your bronze tier items for additional gold. Cool. Yeah, cool. One more reason for us to just hold on to stuff in case we show up to the right merchant. Yeah, I am very curious what the wares are, or if it's just they sell everything, like JJ does. So I'm super interested in a new merchant, especially if they have like a limited pool or a tailored pool, like that. It's more often these particular items. Could be very cool. So we'll see. I'm guessing it's just like JJ with a buying fetish for bronze. So that's fun. Vanessa updates. Holster gains the apparel type. Awesome. That should have happened already. Freeze pick freezes an item for 1 second instead of freezing a small item that escalates. That's cool. We can sometimes get this one off of the cryomancer guy, who's actually a pretty tough fight on day, I can't remember what, 8 or 9. So we can sometimes pick this up. So now that it can freeze any item is kind of cool. It kind of sucks against Vanessa because now she has a freeze item against us, and there are ways to scale up that freeze. But it's okay. I think that's fine. Iceberg's a pretty big change to that one. Starts at gold tier. When your enemy uses an item, freeze for 0.5 or 1 second. So it's the same if you get the diamond tier one off the monster. But you can get it sooner, and it's only a 0.5 second freeze. Shiny is double freeze duration, and deadly removes 100% crit chance from your enemy items. That's super cool. Or just like enemy items have 100% less. You don't have to cast for that to be in effect. That feels like just like a standing aura on an item, which is kind of a new use of enchants. So those are interesting. Not totally, doesn't really affect gameplay that much, but that's cool design space that they're moving into. Nesting Doll has a 2-second cooldown from 3. That is fine. That's an ammo item that shields. I think it's only really used by Vanessa right now in a flagship build where she needs to have an ammo item in order to like trigger flagship's extra multicast. I haven't really seen that in play otherwise. Star Chart, fix a bug where Steiny provided more cooldown reduction than it should. Cool. Tropical Island, when you slow, gain 5 to 10 regen for a fight. Tropical Island does nothing active and just sits on your board to provide a regen effect. So I cannot imagine a world where you have a good slow board and you aren't actually adding more slow or more things to gain damage off of slow triggers, and instead you're just trying to spam regen. Yeah, I'll be super interested to see if someone makes a hipster build out of it, but I do not see that coming into play. Tropical Island is just the item that gives you free, like, coconuts and whatnot, and so I think it just stays in your stash and keeps doing that. Zorsid, sure, fix an issue where this was not charging with skill-based burn. I have never heard of this item in my life, so cool. Awesome. All right, here we go. Pygmallion. Billboard redesign. This is weird and deeply cool. This is cool. Okay, cooldown 7 seconds. Shield 200 or 300. When you shield or heal, which also includes Billboard, give your items +1/+2 value for the fight. This item's cooldown is reduced by 1% for every value it has. So it gives value for the fight. It would be insanely cool if it just gave value, because then you could use this. I mean, that would be broken as hell. But what this means essentially is if you value stack on Billboard and get it up to, you probably only need to get it up into the 80-something range to get down to the 1 second cooldown, because I don't think you're going to be able to go under 1 second. Like everything, there's kind of a fix. It's 1.1 since the bonk. 1.1 is the fastest cooldown time you can get to without charge mechanics. So you get whatever percentage that is to get your cooldown to 1.1, and now you have a 1.1 second shield. 300 shield, which is pretty decent. This is actually an item that, just for that effect, a 1 second shield at 300, could go on a like mid-game fixer board, just to give enough shield to start, powering up for your spike shield. And then every time you shield from both this item and everything else, your items gain 1 to 2 value for the fight. So this means it's supercharging your fixer, or it's supercharging your subscraper or something like that. And you can get it to be very, very fast spam. we have a lot of like when you use a property haste effects that we try to like a skill that we try to get off a monster. When you use a property, give adjacent a crit chance when you use a property, etc. So this actually becomes pretty powerful. It's niche. It's not going to fit in most property builds, um, but I mean, it can be a fit in a lot of property builds, but it depends on how much space you have on your board, right? So, like, let's say you have a fixer and you have your balcony and you have your spike shield, then this is all you can run with it. So you can't do this with the you could also do this with the subscraper setup, but then you aren't running balcony, so nothing's getting double value. So because our property builds have so much like space requirements, it's only going to fit into a handful of builds in very specific niche scenarios. And then you have to be putting a bunch of value on Billboard to get to that point anyway. So you now can't kind of pivot and upgrade your board because you've decided that this is one of your main value stackers. So it just becomes a specific build that you have to know you want to go to in the first place. And it likely also requires Ledger because this is a build where Billboard is not your primary property, so you can't afford to get Billboard up to like 80 value at the expense of putting value on something else. So you need to get that value on like the second hand side of Ledger, which is your suboptimal spot, right? Not in between your Ledger and your rewards card. So yeah, I don't see it being used super often, but it is a cool item that can sometimes be in a build which is perfect. I think more of those need to exist. That's great. Bushel gains the food type. I've been yelling about this for ages. I'm very excited. Cargo shorts redesign is very cool. This actually might make Bob usable. Cooldown 7 seconds. It heals and shields 20, 30, 40, 50. So that's not dependent. So that's a mediocre amount of heal and shields for a 7-second item, but it does both. So if you put it next to your Ganjo, it's going to scale up. It's going to work exactly like a bandages does, only it has a tiny bit more shield and heal, but it's a medium-sized item. This has the types of items in your stash, and your apparel items have minus 5% cooldown for each item type this has. We don't have a ton of apparel items that are active. Most of our apparel items are like that I can think of off the top of my head. The monocle is apparel. Who cares? Jewelry is apparel. Who cares? We don't really use those items. Reducing their cooldown by a lot wouldn't really matter. But your Shadow Cloak and your Knee Brace don't actually have cooldown, so I'm not entirely sure where that effect comes into play, except, Bob, you pair this whole item to me feels like it just exists to run with Beast of Burden. Not only does it give the apparel tag over to Bob, which is one more multicast for it, it's now going to give every single type of item that is in your stash. The big problem with the redesign for Bob, in my opinion, was that he only got the types of items that were on your board and not from in your stash, which made him just too weak to run past day 4 or 5. Now you can have cargo shorts grabbing all of the item types from your stash. Cargo shorts in and of itself has the apparel type, and so that's one less type you have to stash up, and it's worth putting on your board to give that multicast over. And then it gives the apparel type to Bob and gives it 5% cooldown reduction. Gives Bob 5% cooldown reduction for each type of thing you have in your stash. This means your board does not have to have anything unique at all. All your unique types can be sitting in your stash. They can be passed to Bob by virtue of your cargo shorts, and then Bob gets cooldown reduction for each one of them. This is huge. This is the biggest change this patch. It is possibly going to make Bob OP, but it's definitely going to make Bob playable. It's awesome and fun, and I'm absolutely excited to play this. This is going to be a blast. Bob might be back. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Hatchet. This is huge. if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. When you see it hatchet, buy a hatchet. At silver or bronze, you buy it, and it's automatically you get to sell it for what you bought it for. Now buying a hatchet makes you money. It comes with the spare change and a truffle, which means at bronze it gives you 1 extra gold, at silver it gives you 2 extra gold, etc., etc. You now can afford to buy a hatchet at gold and still make money, not even lose the 1 coin, but you make money. And then at diamond, buying a hatchet is neutral. So now you will always see a hatchet, buy a hatchet, but that's if you just want to sell it. We now have access to get tons of truffles. This is massive for us. This actually makes our property game so much bigger. It makes our econ game so much bigger. Every once in a while, you've had a run where you get 2 or 3 truffles and you get to keep selling the value off your truffle onto the next truffle, and you keep freeing up a bunch of cash that way. Now that will be and there's another change later that will make this very, very consistent to do, on top of which you're going to very easily get truffles to be sitting on either side of your ledger, which means that we can start supercharging our value long before we find our property to dump it on. So they talked about the fact that we would be getting truffles through items pretty regularly, and this looks like the beginning of it. I'm super excited. It's going to be incredibly powerful for us. I think on the whole, Pig is very much buffed by this patch. This is one of the main reasons, and the Bob upgrade is one of the main reasons. I'm very excited for this. Hogwash, when you heal, gain 50, 100 to 150 max health for the fight. Fine. I don't know that the max health increase component of Hogwash was ever particularly utilized that well. Every once in a while you would throw it on a heal spam weights board for a little while just because it was a percentage of max HP. It just kind of fought with Lemonade Stand. This gives it a little bit more identity over Lemonade Stand. So I like it. Yeah, and if maybe maybe you do this with like a Lion Cane on your board, and I don't know, a couple of spam heals and a Lion Cane, and you like have in combat scaling. That's cooked. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how we utilize in combat max health gain incredibly towards our advantage, other than you are just scaling the pool from which they got to get to. It kind of allows heal to start becoming shield in a way, in that it gives you more maximum survivability over the heal cap. But I'm not sure these numbers are enough to make that huge or not. I don't know. We'll have to see. You can get Hogwatch to silver, and so at silver this might be busted. If you got this like day 2 or day 3, and you just get to like keep adding 150 hit points onto your board, like no one's going to kill you. Like no one's going to get through that when everyone has like 600 health. So this might be incredibly strong at silver, adding 50 every time you heal. We'll have to check it out and see. I will aim to play with it today to come back with a report. After talking it through, I'm thinking early game this is going to be cracked and they're going to have to fix it. Late game, I don't think that the 150 max health per heal is going to matter too much. Spam healing falls off once the total maximum amount of weapons gets insane, and so I don't think this saves it. Fix an issue where Deadly Open Sign only gave crit to weapons. That was really annoying, but how often do you run Open Sign? Signet Ring has a apparel type. Someone in chat called it. I can't remember who it was exactly, but someone in chat called that. Should happen. Absolutely, that's correct. Freeze Snow Globe. This is pretty cool. Freeze one item for 1.5, or 2 seconds. From freeze and medium or small from 1, 2, and 3. This is big. Snow Globe got pretty hard nerfed by making it locked down to just small and medium. It was a very big nerf, and it stopped being terribly useful to put on your board. I used to run it in my property boards all the time. As soon as you got a damage enchant on your fixer or your subscraper and you could move away from your spike shield as your main damage source, you'd switch over to freeze for lockdown. But because this only affected medium and small items, we started using Booby Trap instead of Snow Globe. Even though Snow Globe has like more fun synergy, Booby Trap, however, it gains charges every time you use a property, has some now really cool synergy with Billboard, which you can get down to being a 1.1 second property. So there might be, and Booby Trap can freeze any item. So we might have a spam 1 second freeze. That's not true because Booby Trap still takes like 2 or 3 casts of something of a property to trigger, but we might get down to using that as a spam freeze and then Snow Globe with it. You could have some kind of crazy setup there, so that'll be interesting to play with. But Snow Globe can now sit in between your 2 big properties, get triple multicast, and start locking down other fixers or submarines or whatever the heck you want to. So that's a great fix. We're fine with the loss of freeze as long as it can now target everything. You can get your freeze up otherwise. And then Vending Machine now gets a chocolate bar, spare change, and a truffle from random 3. So it's more consistent in that you're always getting 1 spare change at least, and 1 truffle, which is going to be worth the same as the spare change, except you get to pass the value, so it'll be worth double a spare change. So this now means value-wise, you are always getting more value out of a vending machine than you used to be able to. And then, again, another source of permanent truffles. The only problem with this is, and I think it's a great problem, is that vending machine requires a lot of stash space, 2 for it and 3 for the catch. And so it just has a lot of opportunity cost associated with it. I think that getting a truffle every day is broken, and we will do some really deep shenanigans with it. And I think requiring a lot of free stash space to utilize it is the correct solution, because one of the big uses of truffles is to be like sandwiched up in your ledger setup. And your ledger setup, even if you're using just a 1 slot item on either side and your rewards card, takes 5 slots. So that 5 slots plus the vending machine means you have just enough space to catch those 3 things and nothing else. So you will have to permanently be clearing your stash to utilize all that together. And I think that's perfect. It makes very hard choices to utilize the power. I think that's a great design. Dually updates. Nobody cares except you, Silo. I know you care. We'll read them because Silo may or may not watch this video. Bomb Squad fixed an issue where it did not count as a haste item. That was silly. Charging Station fixed an issue where the damage buff was triggering for opponent scores. I didn't know that was happening. I would have had to play Dually to know that, but that's silly. Companion Cord Deadly fixed an issue where friends would not gain crit chance. That's awful. Cool. DJ Robot is kind of interesting. It now has cooldown reduction as it levels up. So at Diamond is at 8. The haste is flat at 2 instead of going up to 3 seconds. So it's now a 2-second haste item that used to take 10 seconds to cast, and that's all it did. It was horrible. Now it is an 8-second cast time haste for your friends, 2-second haste. That charges whenever you use another friend. So now a nanobots DJ board actually makes sense because all your nanobots pop off. It fully charges DJ Robot that perma haste them. They pop off again. So DJ Robot on a full nano board means that nanos are fully hasted. This is cool. This is a great change. It also means DJ Robot could get play in other friend boards, because it's not exclusive to nanobots. So that's awesome. I love that item. I like the idea of nanobots. It just never really had any synergy with that item. You would literally only use that item to get the nanobots, and then you kind of throw it away. So yeah, I love that change. It might be really powerful. We'll have to see. We're probably going to definitely face some nano boards on the first couple of days while people try that out. Fiery Rocket Launcher is now, this has double burn. I'm not sure what it was before. Thermal Lance gains the tool type. This looks kind of strong. It's a 5-second cooldown, 5 burn. And then when it gains haste, it gains a crap ton more burn. So this scares me. This feels kind of OP. I mean, that's not a ton of fire to start, but like Dooley does not have problems getting haste. Like you just throw this guy right next to the Uzi that's back down to 2 seconds, which is the next line, and your metronome, and you kind of perma hasted that bugger. So I don't know. That scares the hell out of me. We we shall see how much this wrecks our face. Okay, item updates. Arkan's ring gains the apparel type. Cool. I, I'm just wondering the board state in which that matters, because that's the most hipster board that has ever been. Candy Mail cooldown 4 seconds. You might not know that item. That's one of the three things that you can buy from the Lickit vendor, who gives the items that enhance the items to the left and right of it. And I'm pretty sure Candy Mail is the one that gives it shield. And for some reason, that one was 5 seconds and the rest were 4. It got bonked and the others didn't. So cool. Fix that. Or no, the others got bonked too. Epicurean Chocolate also is now back down. So I guess they all got bonked and they're reverting the bonk on them because there's no reason to. Like, that item exists to use a couple of times and be destroyed, and so making it slower just made it kind of miserable. They're not obscenely powerful in the first place. They're useful, but they're not powerful. Dragonheart fixed a bug where it was charging off of non-burn items. Okay, that's terrifying. Dragon Wing fixed an issue where this was not charging with skill-based burn. Okay, not sure who's using Dragon Wing, because shield is, a little bit of shield when you burn sounds whoop to me, but cool, should work correctly. Flamethrower now has its own effects. I have no idea what this means. This seems cryptic as hell. I think they're talking about visual effects, but Flamethrower doesn't have any text that makes this make any kind of sense. It just gives burn based on its damage. So I'm guessing it's visual effects. Improvised Bludgeon. When you sell this item, your leftmost item gains +1 slow from 1, 2, 3, 4. That's fair. I don't know if you've been to Curio and stacked up your improvised bludgeons, but or you could just hold on to the bludgeon and upgrade it, and then suddenly you chuck like an added 4-second slow onto your Atlatl if you happen to get the slow enchant, and then just everybody cries. It was very niche, but it was very broken, and so that's cool. Okay, nanobots. So this pairs with the DJ. So let's see what it does. Deals 5, 10, 25 damage for each friend you have, from 5, 10, 30, 50 small friend. Okay, so that's a little less synergy with themselves, and just kind of allows them to pair better with other boards. Items cooldown is reduced by 1 second for each adjacent friend. Wow. Nanobot boards might be terrifying now. Like, they all reduce. They all get like a 2-second cooldown reduction that gets perma-hasted by DJ. At least they're not like as strong at Diamond, but that's a little terrifying. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid. I do want to see, though. I would love this to be in vogue for a little while. It'd be fun. You don't see them very often, and when you do, you're like, "Yay, good for you! I just smashed your face." All right, freeze 1, 2, and 3 items for 1 second. From freeze 1 small item from 1, 2, and 3 seconds. Wow. Okay, so they just made Sapphire not size restricted. They're doing this with a couple of items. So Sapphire is no longer size restricted. It can freeze anything, which is fine. This is the necklace thing you could get off 2 or 3 different freeze monsters when you fight. And the big reason why you used it was because it gave your other freeze items 1 second to their freeze. And now it's only 0.5 freeze duration. So that's a little bit balanced, because just pairing this with Iceberg was a nightmare. So it's a little less so. And it has a very slow cooldown duration. It's like 8 seconds. So being able to freeze all items is fine because it falls off pretty fast. Soul Ring gains the apparel type. Cared nobody. Super Syrup, another one of the ones from what's her name? From Lickit, comes down from 5 to 4. And Thurabile cooldown from 9 to 6. I'm forgetting what this was exactly. Let me pull it up. How Bazaar, Thurabile. Oh yeah, this is an item that's from like Enclave Reaper. You see it, you immediately throw away because it's a 9-second fire cooldown item. It now can be 9 burn at 5 seconds or at 6 seconds. Okay. By the way, how Bazaar already has the patch updated, and the patch notes have been out for like a minute. How Bazaar's fire. Okay. Um, and then you gain regen for the fight, and now your regen can crit. Cares nobody. So cool. If I see this on a board, I'll be shocked, but cool. It's probably just part of them fine tuning Mac synergy on the back end for when Mac comes out, because that's definitely a Mac item. Skill updates. Artillery spotter. Oh, the skill updates are, there's a lot and they're kind of nuts, but a recurring theme that we're going to see is they got rid of start of combat skills. A lot of them, not all of them, but they moved them to when you use an item to stop like 1 second kill shenanigans. Namely, you 1 second kill dually with defense grid. That got nerfed, and in a good way. It got nerfed by making you have to use something first. Anything at all. It could be your 2 second Uzi, so you don't have to cry about it. But yeah, so artillery spotter starts at bronze. If you have 5 or fewer items, gain more crit chance. This was fairly crappy, and now can get up to 40% crit chance, so that's great. And it's one of the skills that we can get that we usually hated getting, so that's great. Augmented defense and augmented weaponry. That's the monster skill, the broken as hell monster skill that you can get from Trash Town Mayor. That gives you, every time you sell a small item, you get +1 damage to all of your weapons, or +1 shield to all of your shield items, respectively, depending on the skill. So that it's now a gold item, and yeah, it's now a gold skill, and it doesn't scale quite as hard. This is only because, I mean, I got it one time legitimately and leveled it up using the Shrouded Figure guy who gives you upgrades to your skills up to diamond one time, and all the many, many, many times I've run that thing. And so this is mostly just a response to you being able to get a gold monster skill at start of day, because if somebody got the gold version of this, the game was over. They just won, and so they're fixing that a tiny bit, which is cool. I think this thing is plenty strong at 2. It at 1. It is plenty strong. There's absolutely no reason for that to be stronger. That's great. This thing was originally designed around everybody getting it at bronze and having to slowly work their way up. And by the time you got to 4, you've done most of your small item buy sell, unless you're Pig, in which case we're just ramping up and just got our money in. Okay, combat medic starts at silver. When you heal or gain regen, an item gains crit chance for the fight instead of when you heal. So this also applies to regen instead of just heal. Oh, gain regen instead of just heal. We don't have a lot of gain regen mechanics. There's some. And then the crit chances increase slightly. Still a trash skill. We still hope to never get it. Also, I think this is a skill that we used to be able to get off of Property Baron, and I think they removed that. So we'll see that further down. Conflagration now starts at silver tier. When you use a burn item, that item has 1, 2, 3 burn for the fight. So they just moved this down to silver instead of gold and added one more tier to it. So gives it a tiny bit more. Gives it a little bit more power. This is already a pretty strong skill. If you're burning, like this is a very strong skill. So I'm not entirely sure why that's buffed, especially since it is a fire meta right now. Who did you get that from? Yeah, that's just an available skill, not to us though. So yeah, sad news. Okay. Not sure why. Not sure why. Creeping chill, freeze duration reduced. Yep, that's fine. It was a little bit long. Skills that give you freeze when you do something else are already pretty powerful, so bringing it down is pretty good. Cool It Link. This is depressing. I'll pull it up just in case you don't remember which one. We used to be able to get this from Adira. This used to be your right whenever you use your rightmost item freeze, but then we'd throw Atlatl over there and we'd like permafreeze their board for the first 8 seconds, which was great. Now it's when you use your rightmost item, charge a freeze item, which is just a crap skill, except for Dooley. Even then, it's not a good skill, but it's usable. But it's not usable for us at all anymore. So one more crappy skill in our skill pool. Defense grid. The first time you use an item each fight, shield up to 10, 20, 35, 50% of your max health. So they just moved defense grid to where you have to use something first. So you can't start a combat one-shot kill from just having a huge health pool and hitting somebody with the, what's it called? Force shield. I'm looking at you, Dooley. So they made the one-shot kill mechanic at least wait for you to be able to cast something before you got the shield. I don't know the order of operations. If this still casts the moment your force shield goes off, like if it goes off before your force shield, then I'm not sure it solved much because they were still waiting on that thing for us to die anyway. Frostfire, freeze duration reduced. Cool. Another one of these, like when you burn, you freeze. So reducing that duration is great. Frozen shot, your weapon's cooldowns are reduced by 5, 10, 15 while your enemy has a frozen item. From the first time you use your slowest weapon, each fight freeze one item of equal or smaller size. So this got crappy. This is this is arguably one of the worst skills in the game. Now, while your enemy has a frozen item, I'm pretty sure by definition that means while your enemy's items are frozen, not your enemy has an item that can freeze, because that would be funny counterplay. Hey, they can freeze you, hurry the hell up. That would be cool to have a mechanic like that, but I'm pretty sure it's while you have managed to freeze one of your enemy's items, your weapons have a teeny tiny bit of cooldown reduction. Fantastic. Can't wait to get that skill. Okay, hardly working. Now starts at silver. The first 5, 10, 15 times you slow each fight, charge one regen item 1 second. Again, who cares? There's not a lot of regen items. They're giving a few more some regen. This is really just setting up for Mac to come in because Mac has a lot of regen items, and I think they're leaning on Mac being where regen actually gets like combat effective in reasonable builds, not just perfect run hipster builds. Invigorating Cold fixed an issue where it was only targeting the leftmost item. I noticed that one was really that one was really annoying. I actually unironically was sometimes moving my items around and getting them out of the leftmost position when I was going against Frost Street Champion, because it would just keep perma-freezing like my Atlatl that was in the left slot. So I would like move my Atlatl over to the right, even if I had the leftmost damage skill, just so that it could get more swings off, because Frost Street Champion was freezing it to death. It was really annoying. Or like it would like lock it. That would be the one it would hit with the big freeze at the beginning of the fight. Lethargy now starts at silver tier. All item cooldowns are increased by 1, 2, 3 seconds from 30 to 50%. Cool. I don't know that I've. Oh yeah. This is the skill you'd never pick. The like melting looking clock skill. And it's very terrifying to pick because. Yeah, it's terrifying to pick simply because like it applies to your items too, and then you don't know what boards you're up against, so it just changes the nature of the matchups. I love this because this is now a fort activator. This now gives us the ability to put things like Lion Cane into fort range and give it multicast. So a fort Lion Cane build would be really fun. I've already done Bonk Fort several times and it works great, but you have a little bit of space concerns because you can't fit both of those, your pawn shop and your belt, but you can fit Lion Cane, your pawn shop and your belt and Fort, and then now you get multicast on your Lion Cane, and then you slow everyone else down, giving you time. Granted, you're probably still going to run Phono over pawn shop most of the time, but Whatever. We don't need to talk about that. This is cool. This is now a usable skill for us because we have a way that nobody else has to take advantage of our items actually passing a certain threshold. So that might be fun to use with Fort. I might try to play around with that. Neophiliac. Charge amount reduced by to 2 and 3 from 2 and 4. Fine. Yep, that's fine. That skill's a little strong in the first place. I wouldn't mind it being like 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, but yeah, that it falls off, right? It's just a start of combat spammer. But for certain builds, that could be nuts. Like that often gets your power drill or your lantern, whatever that thing is with the poison fire. I can never remember the name of that thing. That just spams you right off the bat. That can get those a little slower, which is fine. Oceanic Rust. The first time you use an item each fight, haste 1, 2, 3 aquatic items for 2 seconds. So this is just getting rid of start of combat aquatic haste and turning it into a triggered haste. Once you use an item, it happens. So cool with that. Since start of combat haste used to trigger a start of combat like fire, slow, whatever other mechanics, and it would mean that they would get like an insta bash you in the face thing happening from it. So I'm glad they're kind of removing a lot of the start of combat stuff. That's great. Paralytic Poison. Freeze duration reduced to 2, 3, 4. This is another one of the freeze changes where they're just bringing down the total amount of freeze from a triggered effect. When you poison, you freeze is this one. Quick Ignition now starts at Silver Tier. The first time you use an item each fight, haste 1, 2, 3 burn items. Same thing. We're moving the haste from start of combat to the first time you use an item. Although I will say, for the ones that apply to Vanessa, like the Aquatic Rush, she still gets to use. Oh gosh, what's the name of it? It's I'm forgetting the name. It looks like Clamora. She still gets to use Clamora, which is considered use at start of combat. So she will have used an item at the very start of combat if she has Clamor on her board, and that will trigger all of these particular things that require you to just use any item to start. So Vanessa kind of has a workaround, makes Clamor a little bit more powerful for her. So that's, fine, I think. All right. Crit chance bonus increased. Fix an issue where it didn't count as a crit skill. Let's see what reaching the summit is. I don't remember this. When you freeze, your items gain 3 and 6 crit chance for the fight. Whoop-de-doo. From 2 and 4 crit chance for the fight. You only ever really saw this from Frost Street Champion or Vulcus Enforcer. What this means is Vulcus Enforcer is more terrifying, because the problem with him is if you didn't kill him before he did the full board freeze from his stopwatch, then he would bash you in the face 50 times, and every once in a while those would crit, and if you got enough crits off, you would die. And so now he's got a little bit more crit on his spam part of combat, and so he's just a little bit more terrifying. That is the only change with the skill, is Vulcus Enforcer just got a little meaner. So you are warned. Retaliatory Toxins redesign now starts at gold tier when your enemy uses an item poison 1 or 2. Wow. Getting it at gold means it's not going to matter too much, but this is, I don't know, this is super fun. This is a Vanessa skill. I think it looks like Mac can also get it when Mac comes online. This is like a Vanessa skill version of Caltrops. Like, yeah, I think it's a little too slow to matter though. If your opponent has a spam board by the time you got golden skills, I don't think 2 poison on a recurring basis is necessarily the fight, but it's cool. It's a kind of counter option. I like it. Righty tighty. Starts at silver. First 2, 4, 6 times you use your rightmost item each fight. Charge 1 slow item for 1 second. What a nerf. From the first time you use an item, charge or slow 1 item for 1 second. So this used to be an activator that allowed you to slow as soon as you use something. And so you use this, you slow, and then you'd have a when you slow freeze or when you slow do other crap. So this takes us away from being an activator and just starts being a charge of your existing slow. Might be some shenanigans. Like might have some play. I don't know Dooley well enough. We'll have to ask Silo. But might be some play with drill or something else. That you might have a powerful slow item that this could charge. I don't know. I'm not really sure, but it does feel like a strong nerf to like the multi-skill trigger fiasco, which sometimes would happen. Slow and steady now starts at silver. When you slow, give your weapons 2-4-6 damage for the fight. Okay, that's fine from 3 and 6. Slight upgrade at silver, or slight upgrade at gold. Sorry, and it's now available at silver. That's fine. Not exactly a huge skill for us, but it is for Vanessa, so it makes Vanessa a little bit stronger on her like spam slow boards. Static acceleration now starts at silver. When you haste, your items gain crit chance for the fight. We don't haste very often, so this never really applied to us. But it's probably helpful for Dooley. New skill, Steel Storm, starts at silver. Your weapons have 4, 8, 6, 12 damage for each weapon you have. Caltrop is Crook is a skill, y'all. Crook is a skill. This is super cool for us. We're a little terrified that Weapons Vanessa will get her hand on this because it's not limited to 5 or anything. So she could have a full board of spammy weapons that all get 12 damage for each weapon. Or my new terror is Nanobots gets this at Diamond. So this will be more used against us than for us, but it's yet another flat damage skill item that we get to use to get our Crook board online. And when heavy firepower went online, and you could get 25% or 25 flat damage on all of your weapons if you have 5 or fewer items, that single-handedly made Atlatl like 2 times as likely to get together. Like a Crook Atlatl board just suddenly became way more easy. And so we have one more skill online. We'll see where we can get it from, if it's going to be available just at the regular skill vendors, if they throw this on any monsters that we could pick it up off of. But it's another flat damage skill. It operates exactly the same as like Crook does for us at silver, at its gold. So yeah, this is pretty good. This gives us a yet one more way to get some more flat damage on our board to get it Atlatl up to nuclear. So if you have Temporal Strike, if you have exactly one weapon, its cooldown is reduced while your enemy has a slowed item. This is crap. From if you have exactly one weapon, the first times you use it each fight, slow one item. I really don't like this cooldown reduction while your enemy's board is in a state. Do not like. That feels god awful. At least it's easier to have them have a slowed item permanently than for them to have a permanently frozen item, but gosh, that's pretty bad. Trader, your items have +1, +2 value. This is humongous. We're super excited about the skill change. This is one we can get off of the Pygmallion guy, who generally has crappy skills, and so now if we see it, we take it. This is essentially loop as a skill. So all of your items are worth 1 to 2 value. It does mean you get 2 whole more value on your fixer in combat, but that's not the point. The point is that it doesn't say in combat, which means that you buy an item or you get a free chocolate bar that would sell for 0. It now sells for 2, exactly like loop used to do. You can stack it with loop. This is an insane way for us to just get our econ to the moon and get rich and be able to start buying and selling absolutely everything we see, which is yet another buff to things like Cash Cannon, which Cash Cannon I've gotten over, with Obsidian Enchant over 6,000, like 6 or 7 times in the last patch, without Obsidian over 3,000 a couple more times, just because of Ledger and how much we can buy and sell and do shenanigans. Now you can afford to keep doing that almost infinitely. And it also applies to not just small items. So this is really big. We don't get it super often, but it is one of the bad drops from Property Baron. So now Property Baron has a better drop for us. So we've talked about Property Baron twice now. He loses the combat medic skill. We're going to talk about the last part in a second, but he loses the combat medic skill, which is great. And then he also gains this new version of this skill, which is fantastic because it's very powerful. We will pay for those things. I will talk about that in a second, but that doesn't come for free. Okay, Toxic Injector now starts at Silver Tier. The first time you use an item each fight, haste 1, 2, 3 of your poison items for 2 seconds. This just, again, moves a start of combat haste to a when you use haste, which is cool. Last one, Property Baron, has big numbers skill instead of combat medic. So let's look at combat medic real quick. Medic, when you heal, gain regeneration, or gain regen, an item gains some crit chance for the fight. So Property Baron would heal once, and then he would cast his skyscraper that if it crit, you're posed, right? Now he has, what's it called? Big numbers. Okay. The good news. Property Baron now has the new trader, which means we get a free loop and we get to buy and sell shit. Amazing loot. Fantastic. Replaces... that's great. This replaces the other crappy skill, which was just dog tier, which, you have to do a bunch of healing to get... we just almost never use a bunch of healing to get crit chance. Now, your large items have 25 or 50% crit chance, which is massive for us, right? Like, that's another great skill for our property boards. But it comes at the cost of Property Baron on his skyscraper that's already casting for like 2,500 damage in 7 seconds. Now has a 25 or 50% crit chance, depending on what they put it on him. I think they're probably going to put it at gold, but still has a 25% crit chance, and he already usually one-shot you when you fought him between day like 10 and 12 if it crit, but he only had 6% crit chance, and he now has between 25 and 50% crit chance. So Property Baron is a big fish now. It has better items more consistently. The trash items, 2 of them just got upgraded to very, very good tier for us. But it comes at the cost of you got to be able to take him, and he is no longer a pushover. He's going to kick your teeth in. So that's really fun. We'll see how terrified we are of him in the early of the late game. Obviously, eventually you get to the point where you just one-shot him and he's fine, but you're not usually there by day 10. So that might make taking him day 10 off the guaranteed and into the sketch category. But that's it. That is the whole set of patch notes and how I think they apply to us. Hopefully I'll get this up quickly today, and I will be hopping in the Bazaar immediately after I shut this down and starting to playtest the crap out of this. So when we come online tonight, I'm hoping this video gets up before then. It does take a long time to export. But when we're on tonight at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will have playtested as much as I can and have hopefully operationalize some of these changes into how it impacts us. Hope that was helpful, and I hope to see you all later in the Bazaar.